Hey, what's up guys? This is Andrew Mil-Spec with Combat Art Training. Today's video we're going to be talking about my SPR, what are some of the basics of putting together a rifle for the designated marksman role, what I like about this setup, and what are some ways it can be improved, and we're going to be talking about the role of a designated marksman as well. Now, before we get started too, there's a couple terms I want to cover. First is DMR. That stands for Designated Marksman Rifle. And the technically correct definition of that would be a battle rifle, a semi-automatic 308 with magnification set for shooting long distance. Next is a special purpose rifle. That would be a 5.56 set for shooting long distance. So DMR, Designated Marksman Rifle, 308, SPR, Special Purpose Rifle, 5.56. Now, there's a lot of dudes who are going to spend a lot of time researching, and probably too much time researching and too much money putting together their rifle for the designated marksman role, when the reality is all they're really going to achieve at the end of it is they're going to bring their group at 100 yards from something like that to something like that, which is very insignificant when you consider the role of a designated marksman. So this is not a sniper rifle, and a designated marksman is not a sniper. So there's times he'll take shots from cover and concealed positions, but he is a rifleman first. He's simply a rifleman who has the skills and the tools to be able to engage at greater distance with greater precision than the standard rifleman. However, he still fills all those normal roles as a rifleman. So before you even worry about putting together a rifle like this, I would suggest you put together your standard AR-15, AK, whatever, iron sights, light, sling, and then take a class with that, become proficient in those skills you learn, get good at shooting groups at 100 yards, manipulating the rifle, reloads, malfunction clearing, and learn how to fight tactically before you worry about putting together a rifle like this. Now, before I put this together, I had prior training as 0311 rifleman in the Marine Corps, and I had done a designated marksman course. It wasn't a formal course, but it was an expedited one put on by our scout snipers before we went to Yemen to teach us how to fill that role as the designated marksman. And when I did purchase this rifle and put it together, I also purchased a class. I took the DMR SPR class put on by Don Edwards of Green Line Tactical, and I bought a fuck ton of ammo to be able to hone those skills. If you're interested in that course, you can watch my interview with Don and my review on that class. But now, let's get into it. I'm going to try not to spend too much time talking about each individual item, but I will touch on what I have here. So first, mandatory 3 things for any rifle that's set up for combat are going to be iron sights, a light, and a sling. Now, lots of the videos I'm seeing of people with their DM rifles and their SPRs, they don't have iron sights, and a lot of them don't have a light. Now, if you're just shooting, for fun, shooting long distance, that's fine. But this channel is called Combat Art Training because everything we're talking about is meant to be based around combat. So if your optic were to go down on your DM rifle, you need to have backup iron sights. And I also will say that even if you have like a canted red dot or something like that, you still need to have backup iron sights because all that technology can fail. And if your optic goes down and you don't have backup iron sights, you cannot fill the roles of a normal rifleman unless you pick up someone else's rifle. In addition to that, one of the greatest things about a DMR SPR is that you can still clear rooms and stuff like that, but if you don't have a light on your rifle, you can't do that. Not all rooms are going to have lighting. Electricity is not always going to be there, and the sun's down half the fucking day. So you need to have a light on your rifle. But I have a video on that, mandatory 3. I just really want to emphasize the fact that you do need that stuff on your rifle still, because again, this rifle is meant for a rifleman, not for a sniper. Now, the mandatory 3 things that you're going to want for a rifle setup for the designated marksman role are going to be an optic with magnification, bipods, and match grade ammo. So there's other things on this rifle, and I'll talk about what the rifle is itself, but as far as setup goes, those are the mandatory things. Now let's dive into it. First off, Iron sights. What I'm running is the Magpul M-Bus Pros. The reason why I went with that is because Magpul's a good company and they're metal. I don't want polymer sights. They do make polymer sights. I don't fucking want them. But the other thing I like about them is that they have a very thin profile and they're totally out of the way of my optic. When you get these, the front sight is gonna have the orientation set where it's a thinner profile. You know, that's meant so that you can shoot tighter groups out of distance. However, this rifle is meant for combat, so I went ahead and flipped that over to the wider profile. If you didn't know you could do that, just watch a video on it. It's pretty easy to do. You're just gonna have to re-zero afterwards. You can also get a tritium insert front sight, which I may do in the future. But I like them. You know, I shoot without the optic on this rifle from time to time, just to stay fresh on those sights, and yeah, they work well for me. Now, next thing, light, Surefire Scout dual fuel. Reason why I went with this is number one, Surefire, so it's quality, and number two, it's bright as hell. This one gets me 1500 lumens with the rechargeable battery in there, and that battery holds charge for a long ass time. Like, I put it in and 6 months later it's still shining. You know, I charged it overnight when I first got it and it still works. When it's got the non-rechargeable batteries in there, it shines at 1000 lumens. So either way, it's gonna be bright as hell. Now this riding on an Arisaka light mount, which I like because instead of having it right over here at the side of the rifle, it brings it tighter in and higher up, so it's at a better position to hit with my thumb. The new Scouts, you can actually just rotate them and lock them into position from what I've seen, so you don't necessarily need to get that mount. But if you're running an older one, the Arisaka mount is nice. Not needed, but it's nice. Next, the sling. 2-point sling. You want a 2-point sling with a quick adjust. Now, these slings I sew them by hand myself. You can watch a video on me talking about the sling. But the reason why you want a 2-point is a couple reasons. Number one, it's better for transitioning to a pistol. You know, if you have like a 12-inch barrel rifle, short barrel rifle, you can get away with a 1-point, but I always prefer 2-point, except for shotguns. And that's something I learned from James J. Tactical Response. Go Liber TV, watch his Fighting Shotgun DVD, you'll understand. But the yeah, you can transition to a pistol better with a 2-point sling, and also you can make a more stable shooting position if you tighten it down. And there's a couple of tricks which I'll talk about later. Now, that's the mandatory things for any rifleman for combat. Now, what I have on this to have it set for the designated marksman role is, again, optic, bipods, and match grade ammo. So first, optic. Whatever you get, make sure that you have mils in it, and make sure that it's a minimum of 10 power. So first, why mils? Well, that's because most dudes who are out there shooting long distance, they're using mils. So if you're talking to them, they're gonna be able to communicate to you better if you're using mils. That way there's not a fucking math problem in the middle of saying this is how you shoot 2 inches lower. When I did the DMR SPR class, they were all using TMR3 reticles, or well, that was Don's preferred reticle, and then most of the guys there, except for 2 dudes, all had milled reticles, and so we were able to communicate very easily. In addition to that too, if you have mils built in, it's not just about where your point of impact is, but you can like say, all right, put your crosshair on the red building. Okay, now go 5 mils right and 2 mils down. Do you see that rock? Yes. All right. You know, that's where I think he shot it from. So there's a lot of stuff that works in there with mils, in addition to just being able to communicate with the guys as far as your holds. Now the other thing is the 10 power minimum. That's not just me who says that, that's also what Don Edwards says. And the reason for that is that if you're shooting long distance, you want to, number one, have proper target identification. Number two, you want to be able to see where the impact of the round is. even at 400 yards, I have trouble seeing the impact of the round sometimes with a 10 power scope. So I do wish I had more magnification, especially shooting at longer distances. Seeing where that round went, it's not easy, especially when you got shitty garbage eyes like me. Now this one goes down to 2.5 power. That's not bad for shooting close distance, but it's not as good as like a red dot or iron sights. Reason being that you bring up a red dot or iron sights, you bring them up, align it so you find the dot or the front sight, put it on target, engage. Now when you bring up a magnified optic, your brain has to readjust to the fact that you're looking through a magnified optic, and then you put the crosshair on target and you can engage. So it's not that it's impossible or terrible, it's just that it's not as good and it's not as fast. There's just a little bit of lag time in there. Now, the scope I went with is the Arms GLX DMR HUD reticle in 5.56. So it's their Gold Line series, the mid-grade series, has nicer turrets, illuminated reticle. The reason why I went with this is I'd always heard great things about Arms quality. Number one, it was right at the magnification range that I was thinking would suit me well. And then the biggest thing is that the BDC in there and all the additional information it has. It's very good for range estimation. So you can find the range based off of the shoulders, off a man's head, or off their height from foot to head, or divide that number in half and you can get off belt line to head. You can also use any object out there that you can see as well. As long as you know the rough dimensions of it, you can range estimate with that. It also has wind holds and moving target holds for running, jogging, and walking. Now, there's a certain way that you zero this optic, where you look at the load you have, the barrel length, determine the velocity, and then you zero based off of where your point of impact is. So if you're aiming right here on the bullseye, like with the 77 grain ammo I was using, you want it to impact 2 inches high in order to line up with the BDC. It's close, but not exact. And I haven't done it with like a chronograph or anything like that to find out the exact velocities of my rounds. But regardless of that, you still want to practice and find out what your holds are at each distance that you're planning on shooting. I would say 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, and maybe even the 50-yard markers in between to be, even more precise, but at least at each 100-yard marker. I like it, and it does have mils built into it, so I was able to communicate well. I haven't gotten to shoot longer distances past 400 recently, but I can say out to 400, I can get consistent headshots very easily. I know where my holds are at. The biggest effect on it is going to be the temperature that day, because the temperature does have an effect on the round, how fast it's going. So does humidity, and that's the reason why I would say the biggest thing that you're going to invest in with your scope, should be the scope with your DM rifle, because you can take that scope and you can use on a better rifle later. You want to be able to see where the rounds are impacting. You want to be able to identify the target, because we're not trying to make first round impacts every time. A lot of the time you're just trying to see where the round went, because at the greater distances you're shooting, the more that the variables are going to play into effect. First the distance, then the wind, the temperature, humidity, and even how much the clouds are covering and affecting the lighting, as far as how much you can see the target and the area beyond to see where the strike of your round actually goes. So, but as far as being able to make headshots out to 400 yards, works great. With this setup, I have engaged all the way out to 677 yards, which is far as hell for a 5.56. I made it. I was able to make it again. That was a really tough shot. And I would say if you're shooting past 550 yards, you really do just want to get to a 308. Now, that's the optic, and it's riding on a Midwest Industries quick detach mount. So you have these levers. All you have to do is press in right here, and then you can flip it up. Just watch the videos on how to properly set it up so you don't have it too loose or too tight. I found that it's pretty good as far as I shot 200 to 400 yards on steel targets, and then I popped the scope off, put it back on, and I was able to shoot it again. I haven't done it where I shoot groups at 100 yards and then see how far off exactly it moves when I take off the scope and put it back on, but I did see I could at least make those shots. Now, the last thing with the scope too is it has illuminated reticle. Not really a big deal. I like it. I'd rather have it than not have it, because when you're indoors you can see it very well. Outdoors with this particular scope, I can't see it when the daylight's good. Of course, the daylight's good, you don't necessarily need it as much, but indoors it's really nice, and if the sun's going down, it's really nice too. Some dudes don't even give a shit about having illuminated reticle. If you're really Gucci, you'll find a night vision unit that you can actually mount in front of your scope, which Sean Edwards actually has a nighttime DMR class that I want to take as well. Those optics are really great, and they are very effective at night. But illuminated reticle isn't necessarily a huge deal, but it's nice to have. Now, next thing, bipods. So I have the Magpul bipods on here, and I like them. The reason why I went with the Magpul bipods is I didn't want to spend a lot of money on bipods. I wanted something that would work, and that would be durable. The other set that's in the same price range would be the Harris bipods. And when I was in the Marine Corps, when we first got M27s, IARs, and then we deployed to Afghanistan, when we got out of our area of operations, it was like 3 out of 5 sets of Harris bipods were broken. They just have too many small welds on them. And of course, that's after a big training cycle too, but they're just not durable enough. And then the other things too is that they have a spring in them, right, where you can quickly pop them out, which is really nice in the fight. However, numerous times in training, guys would do that and it would give away our position. It's just too easy of a way to break noise discipline. But looking at what I had seen on the Magpul bipods, they seem pretty good. Seem durable. I like the fact that I had rubber feet too, because that way you can put them on a hard surface and they're going to be a little bit more stable than if they were just metal feet. And they've held up nicely. Basically what you want bipods is build a better position, but you can also do a lot with it in more unconventional positions, as far as like jamming up onto a barricade or pulling it into you. There's lots of things you can do with bipods, but that's definitely a must for a designated marksman rifle setup for that role. Now, only thing is I do wish I had a quick release on these, because again, if the scope goes down, I have to ditch that. That's why I quick release on that, and then I'm going to iron sights. I'm just filling the role of a normal rifleman, and if the scope goes down, I want to take off the bipods, because yeah, they're great, but they can also be a nuisance, especially like if you're doing stuff like clearing rooms. If I were to clear rooms and I still had the optic on, I might want to pop off the bipods anyways, just because when you get into tight spaces, they just have a tendency to catch on shit. So if I can make the rifle a smaller profile, I would. Now, last thing that's mandatory for a DM rifle setup is match grade ammo. Now, if you're using a normal load and a group's really tight, that's fine, but you still want to shoot out at extended distances. Imagine, as best you can, shoot out to 600 yards. Now, like I said, for my setup, I'm doing fine making headshots out to 400, right? And to me, it's more important to base it off of headshots, like a 10-inch steel target that you can hit at those distances consistently and easily. It's more important to base it off of that than it would be a full silhouette, because in combat, no one's going to stand there like this for you to shoot at them. So usually they're using cover and they're not presenting themselves as much of a target as those full-size silhouettes. So if you can hit those full-size silhouettes out to like 700, that's great. Just understand the fact that more than likely they're not going to present that much of a target to you. If they are, that's awesome, you know, because then that's like cheating for you, but it's not very likely. So match grade ammo gives you better performance at long distance. It also gives you better groupings at shorter distance. The reason why is that the rounds are made more consistently, and then also they're going to have higher velocities. Now the standard for match ammo in like a 5.56 would be the Black Hills 77 grain match round that the military uses, and that stuff's awesome. This is the IMI 77 grain hollow point boat tail match razor core, which myself and 2 other guys were using in the class. We really liked it. Like under 1.5 inch groups when we were doing our job. The other round I've been using is the Australian Outback 69 grain hollow point boat tail Sierra Match King, and that's been doing really well for me as well. The difference is that at that time, before this whole coronavirus happened, the Black Hills ammo was $550 for 500 rounds. The IMI was at $350 for 500 rounds, and then the Australian Outback was at this time $300 for 500 rounds. So I've been going to the Australian Outback now because it groups very tightly for me, and it's at a way lower price, and they have it at my local store, West Armory, so I've been happy with that. Okay, so those are the mandatory things for a rifle setup for the designated marksman role. Now we'll go into some extras and talk about the rifle itself that I have. Okay, so the next thing is the forward grip. The reason why I like forward grip is because if I'm doing like a long patrol and I'm in a lot of pain, I'm carrying too much weight, it just has always been a comfortable position to put my hands on the rifle. In addition to that, it gives me a consistent spot to put my hand, where if I were to raise up the rifle, I'd want it there every time. So I just put the forward grip in that position, and it allows me to also pull the rifle in tight to my body. Also, it's very good for if you're shooting off a barricade of some kind. If you imagine I set the bipods onto like a table, and then I can put the forward grip, brace off the edge of it, or I could put the forward grip on that table and then press in the magazine against the edge of it and then just stabilize it with my hand. There's just basically a lot of things that you can do as far as building a more unconventional position off a barricade. Also, the final thing that I like about forward grips is that if I put my sling around it, I can get it tighter than just tightening down my sling. Is the way I run my sling, I like to have it, or if I tighten it down all the way, it's on my body, but I can still come up on target. Now if I put it around here, it's even tighter than if I tighten it up all the way. So that's especially useful if you're benched up. You imagine you have your bipods on the table, but there's nothing to actually push them into. So then you tighten up the sling, it makes the rifle tighter, but then you're able to put your hand back here. It just makes it a very nice tight position where you can consistently come back on target. Keep in mind though, anytime you tighten down your sling, you may over tighten it, and it may throw your rounds off just a little bit. So it's something to consider even when zeroing. I like to actually zero without using my sling, just because more than likely if I have to take a shot, I'm going to be coming up and taking that shot, and I'm not using the sling tightened down to stabilize that position. Talking about more shooting, standing, and kneeling. So keep that in mind. Now, next thing, 20 round magazines. Reasons for 20 round magazines. Number one, It allows you to get closer to the earth when you're shooting in the prone, or off of like a table or something like that too. You can get lower to whatever that is that you're resting the rifle on, which can aid in making a more stable position. The other reason why 20 round magazines are nice is because it allows you to segregate your match ammo from your ball ammo, and if anyone needed to use one of your mags, they would know that, hey, all my 20 round mags are for match ammo. These are 20 round P mags. I really like them. They ran great for me. Pretty much all the extra magazines that I'm buying at this point are P mags, so those are nice. Now, last thing as far as like additional gear for the rifle, besides talking about internals and parts of the gun, is going to be a bag. Now, I would say this really is a must-have. You may not want to patrol with a bag, but you could just simply get like a boot stock, fill it with airsoft BBs, and it'll be nice and light. Now, the reason why a bag is nice is because it gives a greater surface area between the rifle and the earth, meaning that if I put it in back here underneath the stock, it's better than just having my hand back there. I will put my hand back there a lot, but this is something that we use in the class, especially where I learned the proper use of it, and it really does help out. So you imagine it gives a nice little, this one gives a nice little pocket to set the stock in, and that greater surface area between the rifle and the earth, and you can still stabilize it with your hand as well. There's additionally to that, shooting off of a hard surface. So you put the rifle right onto a hard surface, it's better than just trying to do it standing. However, there's still movement in there. But when you put a soft surface, the bag, in between the rifle and that hard surface, again, there's going to be a greater surface area touching that hard surface, and because it's going from hard to soft rifle into the bag, it's more stable, it's nicer. All right, so that's it for additional stuff on the gun. Now let's talk about the rifle itself. What I'm using right here is Aero Precision rifle, build so to speak, because I put together the lower, but the upper, I don't do that. I just bought the upper as is. So lower, real quick, M4E1 lower, which I like because it has a built-in trigger guard, so it's one less thing I had to put together, and the lower parts kit that goes into it, there's certain little screws and stuff that were easier than having to use like a punch. You just have to make sure you have the right Allen keys and stuff like that. Flare and magwell, I don't really care about flare and magwells because I've never had an issue inserting a magazine anyways, but there's that there too. Now, this pistol grip is the BCM, I think mod 2. It's the one where you can switch out the back strap. I like it. The angle is nice, especially coming up fast on target, because the stock is close to the shoulder, and I have I have a position where I'm facing the target. It's in a natural position for my wrist, whereas the A2 was more that angle grip was designed to be shot where you're bladed from the target. So very nice, ergonomic, but you don't fucking need to worry about it. You can use whatever grip. It's not a huge difference, but this is my preferred one now. Now the buttstock is A1 buttstock. I like a solid stock. If you want a telescoping M4 style stock, that's cool, but I like fixed stock because it's consistent cheek weld and I don't have to fuck with it. And if I ever have to moor the rifle, I don't have to collapse in. I just go straight to it to clear that malfunction. Now this is Cavalry Manufacturing. I would try Brownells or a different company. The reason for that is that the screw that came with this one for the sling swivel was the incorrect size, so I had to go to Ace Hardware and figure out try out a couple different screws to find the one that best work. Now I do have this Loctite in, but now there is some movement in the stock, so I'm at the Loctite that. I just noticed that. Okay, trigger. Match grade trigger is a great thing to have. However, with the way that I'm practicing and trying to hone my skills, I don't want to put it in until that's the last thing I need to make me more accurate. Because match triggers are cheating. You know, if you have like a nice 2-stage or 1-stage trigger, like a Geissele, that's a great thing to have. However, I look at it like if you put a really nice trigger into your rifle before you're good with your rifle, it's kind of like you're taking steroids before you're good at lifting. It's only a stepping stool. It doesn't get you all the way there. It doesn't suddenly make you super accurate. It's just cheating a little bit, you know, and cheating is fine. We're trying to, you know, kill Taliban, not win a football game, right? You can cheat when you're putting together your rifle. But the trigger I have in here is just the normal Mil-Spec trigger. I still get tight groups with it. Again, I can get groups all the way underneath 1.5 inches, and nothing on this rifle is matched. Even the barrel is just 18-inch CMV barrel. It's not a stainless steel. It's, though I guess my ammo is match grade, but I don't see any point in spending $200 in a trigger if I'm able to hit at the distances I want. Now, in the future, I may, and I would like to put in a better trigger, but that's also because I've already taken 2 different courses on using this rifle. I plan on doing more courses in the future, more DM courses, but priorities is training comes before gadgets. So there's that. Also, Mil-Spec triggers aren't that bad. Some people hate on them. If you understand the way a trigger works and then you practice with that trigger, you can use it effectively. Maybe not quite as fast, quite as easily, but I am fine running a Mil-Spec trigger in this. All right, now the upper. Aero Precision M4E1, 18-inch barrel, rifle length gas system with the Atlas rail. That's the barrel. Again, 18-inch rifle length gas system. It's a CMV, so it's not a match barrel, but it's fat down here and it slowly tapers down. So it's got, it's a little bit heavier barrel. It's not necessarily a heavy barrel, but there is more material around the barrel. I am not a gun nerd in the sense that I know exactly what materials and what make of the barrel makes it you know, the best thing in the world, but I do like it. I do see the groups opening up when I put a lot of rounds through it, so there's that to keep in mind. Maybe that's something you want to look into, but again, if the rifle's nice and cool, I can get groups underneath 1.5 inches if I'm doing my part. Now, I have a flash hider on there. I don't really believe that you need a brake on an AR-15, especially not with a rifle length gas system. Flash hider to me is more important, just because that at night will make it so you don't blind yourself and you're not gonna necessarily give away your position as much. And again, it's just a high power 22. You know, it's not that hard to shoot where you really necessarily need a brake. Are they nice? Yeah. But I think tactically a flash hider is more important. Now, why it's such a long barrel? So the longer barrel you have, the more performance you're going to get out of an AR-15 in 5.56. With the rifle length gas system, the softer shooting is going to be. So that round's going to perform better. It's going to do what it's designed to do. AR-15 rounds need velocity in order to do their job, and also it's the faster a round's going, the less affected by wind it's going to be, and the better performance you're going to get out of it at long range. You can use a 16-inch barrel, that's fine. If you're talking about, I want to put a silencer on it as well, that's a great idea, and I would suggest you do it. I do want to put a silencer on this in the future, because there's a lot of things that will do for you. Number one, it's going to be quieter for you, quieter around your teammates. Also, if If everyone in your squad's running silencers, then you can distinguish who's shooting, as in good guys from bad guys. Also, it can conceal your position. So if you are doing that like sniper type shot, covering concealed position at a long distance, you can very, very effectively disguise where you're shooting from. When you shoot, like just say you're shooting at 400 yards, what you'll see is that you have your sights on target, you press the trigger, you hit the target, you see the target move, and after you see it move, you'll hear the ping from it hitting the steel. So what that means for the bad guy is that, oh, I got shot, and then you hear crack after the guy gets shot. So silencer is a great thing. There's several dudes in the class I took that were running silencers, and fucking they were awesome. Even when they were shooting, I mean, I already have tinnitus. Not necessarily saying it's a good thing to do this, but I'm like, my hearing's pretty fucked anyways. I popped off my ears to hear them shooting, and I was behind them. I wasn't right up on the rifle, but dude, it was money. It was like I could hear just fine. I didn't get any additional ringing from them shooting with their cans on. So silencer would be a great thing. All right, and all right. Last thing is, I'm sure you're wondering, is the paint job. So this is a rattle can paint job. I do not believe in doing Cerakote. If you want to, that's cool. But if you're paying for Cerakote and not paying for training, you're wrong. Because there's guys that'll pay like $300-400 to get a cool paint job on their rifle, but they're afraid of it getting scratched and they haven't taken a class. That's retarded. So as long as you're training too, dude, painting is cool. Half the reason why I painted this was just to make it look cool, because I enjoy it, my little tactical arts and crafts. So I just took whatever the camouflage spray paint is that's flat, and I did a heavy base of tan, tore up some paper bags, put it over it, streaked some brown to get the brown streaks, and threw a laundry bag over, and did a lighter brushes of tan on top of that. Now it gets scratched up, and that's fine. In worst case scenario, I can paint it again. When you do the scope, I recommend tape off all the things with the numbers while you do the major painting, and then do like I did, so you can still see the numbers. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but after the whole thing was painted, I brought the can back to, like, I don't know, here, make sure the glass was still protected, and just, and all I did was kind of put little sprinkles of paint over it, but I can still see all the lines and all the numbers, so I can still make proper adjustments as I need to. Now, all right, last thing is what caliber should you get? So again, 5.56, that's the SPR, and then 308 is the DMR. If you're focused on shooting long distance, you know, you are in an area where you think that you'd have to take a farther shot than what 5.56 is effective for, go for the 308. But the thing you gain from using a SPR, 5.56, is the fact that you can change out ammo with anyone who's using an AR-15. I shoot this with match ammo and with 5.56 ball, because I want, 5.56 full metal jacket ball rounds, because I want to see what it would be like if I did have to do that. And again, out to 400, I can still make consistent hits. At 400 is a little bit harder because there's a shift in the point of impact, and my groups do open up using 55 grain full metal jacket, but it's still effective. So that's the thing I like about it. In addition to that, it's very easy to get back on target with 5.56 as opposed to 308. Not that it's impossible, and I don't have a lot of time behind a DMR in 308. Very, very limited, but obviously, since it's softer shooting, it's easier to get back on target. It's gonna be a lighter gun, and again, ammo's cheaper. You imagine lots of times it's 50 cents per round with a 308, whereas my match ammo is about the same price. So, and again, I can always change out ammo with the guys next to me, and it's not that bad if I want to move it into a home defense role. I keep it loaded for home defense in case I had to use it. Again, I'm going to go to my shotgun first, or my other AR-15, which has iron sights, but it is something that is doable. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it, and I know this is a long one. Be sure to like my video, give me a comment. I want to hear about where's some of the additional things that you consider for the designated marksman role, and if you have any questions, please comment that below as well. And then share this video with anyone that you've talked about putting together a designated marksman rifle with. All right, guys, take care, and remember, training saves lives.